a research report which aimed at understanding how COVID-19 impacted South African SMMEs. And the research indicated that 92% of small businesses operations are affected, while 63% of businesses operations can provide their products virtually. This meant that over 55,000 SMMEs will not survive and the pandemic, and at least 42,350 people working for these SMEs will lose their jobs. Small businesses also indicated that the need to be resilient and agile, and two areas that they saw as important was the need of diversifying their offerings and the need of disruptive approaches. So in response to this report, we developed the Idea to Market 21-Day Challenge, which aimed at driving innovation and social impact through technology-enabled solutions. This served as an opportunity to challenge Africa's youth into developing solutions in three tech-centric areas, which are health, education, and finance. The winners were incubated at our hub for 6 months, giving them enough resources to grow and launch their startups. So given this economic climate and as an incubation hub, we therefore aim to provide co-working spaces, impactful programs, and a supportive entrepreneurial ecosystem for startups and SMEs to thrive and be resilient. We use hackathons and huddles to build a pipeline of high-impact startups across Africa and support corporate innovation. We aim to expand the incubation and accelerator program for a wider virtual reach. We aim to work with public and private sector to provide access to partnerships and markets. And lastly, we want to enable the development of best policies to advance the entrepreneurship ecosystem. So despite all these challenges we have been facing during COVID-19, South Africa's tech ecosystem has been doing very well. The Global FinTech Ecosystem Report in 2020 ranked Johannesburg second under the Sub-Saharan Africa FinTech ecosystem to watch out. This city is considered a potential FinTech magnet in Africa for low-income customers. And most recently, South Africa has ranked first in the FDI African Tech Ecosystem of the Future 2021-2022 report in the categories such as startup status, business readiness, friendliness, and economic potential. This ranking explores the African tech ecosystem and its potential for the future. This shows that not all hope is lost. The country has necessity-driven entrepreneurs, and it is important that they gain the entrepreneurship awareness and orientation skills in order to thrive. And lastly, I would also urge us as incubation hubs in South Africa to collaborate more, because at the end of the day, our main goal is to nurture the entrepreneurial mindset and also achieve a conducive entrepreneurial environment for entrepreneurs to thrive in South Africa and beyond. And one thing that I also would like to touch on is that currently we are also running the Entrepreneurship World Cup, which is a pitching competition headed by Gen Global. One thing I also noticed was that we don't find a lot of African, not just South African, but African startups who exceed through to the global stage, which is a bit problematic. So then it means that we as the entrepreneurial ecosystem, we need to now see where is the missing link within our education system and also the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Hence the need for this entrepreneurship awareness and orientation skills. The lady before mentioned that some entrepreneurs just want to create jobs to survive, and that shouldn't be the case. We should now be creating solution-based entrepreneurship startups that actually will also be sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mahlatse. Please, may I request that you switch your, there you go. I thought you wanted to run quickly. I know that you have to step off the platform as soon as we're done, but before you go, thank you so much. I really appreciate your coming on this morning and sharing with entrepreneurs what your non-financial and financial programs. Am I correct? Is it both non and financial programs that you have that entrepreneurs can possibly take advantage of? And you are an enabler. You're the largest startup campus in Africa.
Yes.
Is that what am I getting that correct? You're the largest, with a variety of programs designed to assist entrepreneurs, which is really a big deal. Entrepreneurs are always constantly looking for programs that are designed to assist. Entrepreneurship is not easy. It's not for the faint-hearted. But nobody said it was going to be easy. You see entrepreneurs, shutting down their businesses and going back at it again. I think when you are bitten by the entrepreneurial bug, you always go back. And it's okay to, when things don't work out, it's okay to shut down and take a bit of a step back and rethink your plan and re-strategize and really, would you say that? Is it okay to do that?
Yes. So one other issue that we as an incubation hub, we've realized is that people are married to their ideas. And by married, I mean, a person will see that it's not necessarily that it's not working, but right now, the conditions that we are in, you need to now think innovatively, or there's a business structure that you need to change. So too often, entrepreneurs need to understand that you changing your business model does not necessarily mean that you're changing the end goal. You need to always have that end goal in mind, but don't be too married to your idea to a point where now your business will fail. Allow other people to come in and help you, because ultimately for your company to survive is for other people for collaboration, partnerships. We are all here to create jobs. We are all here to create employment. We are all here. We want South Africa's ecosystem to thrive. So we need as much collaboration as possible. And besides startups, as incubation hubs as well, we need to start creating an environment of also collaboration instead of competitiveness, because at the end of the day, our kids, I like to call the startups in here as our kids, because we're nurturing them. They are the ones that will create these jobs that people from varsity need. And also, secondly, another element is varsity students. One thing I've realized, and I also had to adjust to this, is that we as varsity, I was a varsity student, but varsity students always have this mentality of, I'm going to find myself in a corporation. And this environment that we're in, we need to have a resilient and adaptable mindset that even if you're in an entrepreneurial space, you will be able to thrive. So I would also urge that people look at upskilling. There's now a program of McKinsey & Co. Forward program, which is aimed at equipping young people with the necessary skills to be resilient and adaptive. So those are the three key areas that are important in also helping the South African entrepreneurial ecosystem thrive.
Yeah, and I've been fortunate enough to have been at your offices and at least to the incubation hub and see it live and see what you do. It's the truth. What Mahlatse has shared with us today is the truth. There is a hub that does amazing things and that is designed to ensure that entrepreneurship thrives. That's what the fundamental prize is, to ensure that entrepreneurship thrives. But also, before I let you go just now, you for entrepreneurs who may be wanting to get through to you, your address can be very intimidating, right? It's out in Bryanston, so it can be very intimidating for some entrepreneurs. How do they get a hold of you online, given the circumstances that we find ourselves in?
So you can visit our website, 22 Sloan. .co, just 22onstone.co. You'll find us there. Connect with us. Also, since COVID-19, we have a lot of virtual events. So if you can't come, I urge everyone to actually come in the building because it's a very colorful and vibrant building. This is where you will also feel the entrepreneurship ecosystem and the entrepreneurship feeling brewing inside of you. But otherwise, we also have webinars that we have monthly, and also you can go on our YouTube page just to see what we're all about. Go on YouTube, 22 on Sloan. You'll see all our past webinars and some activities that we've done here.
Thank you so much. And I agree, first prize is to show up at the hub, but considering all the COVID regulations, keep your, social distancing, wearing your masks and sanitizing. Please give our regards to our friend, Kizito. And thank you so much, Mahlatsi, for showing up and sharing this with us today. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. And before I invite our next speaker online, I just want to quickly read somebody's comment who says that, oh, geez, I think I'm dealing with gremlins because I can't see the comment anymore. But it was about inviting some of the stakeholders that have got funding programs in place to these chats. Point taken by all means. In fact, when we have physical events everywhere in the country, when the situation is normal prior to COVID-19, that's exactly what we would do. We would invite in the room the DTIC, NEF, IDC, all of those entities that have got financial programs because, in the main, that's what most entrepreneurs are looking for, though it might not always be the problem, but in the main, that's what entrepreneurs are looking for. I urge you to keep those comments coming and the questions coming. Now, Mr. Eustace Mashimbe is online, representing Proudly South African. He is the CEO of Proudly South African. Welcome, Eustace. He's going to take us through, our mandate, why we do what we do, and why entrepreneurship is critical in our world in an effort to, create jobs and sustain the jobs that we have, amongst many, many other things that we do. Welcome, sir. The platform is yours. Thanks.
Okay. Good morning, Program Director. Good morning to all the delegates who've joined us this morning, and to the speakers that spoke before me and those who are coming after. I'm done with my presentation. Thank you for the opportunity. As introduced, my name is Eustace, and I'm here to take you through the Proudly South African campaign, being the official buy local advocacy organization in the country, why we exist, as well as how we see this role within the broader entrepreneurship space in the country. And just to give a bit of context, the Buy Local campaign, which is Proudly South African, is built on the back of the fact that the country battles high levels of unemployment, which breed a lot of poverty, and as a result, leads to inequality because those who remain unemployed, continue to not have anything, whilst those who are prospering continue to prosper, and the gap between the have and the have-nots continues to grow in the country. And so, in order to try and deal with this challenge, a presidential job summit was convened in 1998 because this problem has been persisting since then. So the then president at the time, Nelson Mandela, convened a job summit with all the social partners to try and come up with ways to create jobs and sustain the jobs that already existed in the country. And one of the outcomes was to form a buy local campaign. And that's how Proudly South African was born. And this phenomenon of buying local is popular all over the world. It's tried and tested. It's a global phenomenon. And in developed economies, it has worked and continues to work. And I have a case study that I'll show you in a couple of seconds. But even before I get to that case study, there are countries that have continued to implement this. Australia is one of those. In fact, when Proudly South African was formed back in 1998 and when it opened its doors in 2001, which was exactly 20 years ago. It was modeled around the Australian Made campaign, which is about getting Australians to buy locally made products every time they choose to buy anything that they require for their homes, for their businesses, or even for the public sector. In the UK, there is a similar campaign, and there is a campaign in the Philippines called Buy Local, Go Local. In Africa, we have seen the advent of many of these campaigns over the years, and we have assisted set up some of those, including in Zambia, Swaziland, Malawi, and Zimbabwe. And we've had talks with countries like Mauritius and Tunisia who've also explored bringing into live buy local campaigns for their countries. We have studied extensively the work that is being done, or looked at closely the work that is being done by the United States. And we found that back in 1933, a Buy Local Act, a Buy American Act was enacted. It was followed up in 1982 by the Buy America Act, and an improvement to that act was issued in 2017. And all of these acts are aimed at making sure that Americans support labor-intensive sectors by buying those products that they make themselves. So if there's anything that is made in the US by those who live within the borders of America, they will choose to consume that whenever buying a product that has competing products coming from outside of the US. And I think the fact that the new president, when he came in hardly a week into office, President Biden signed into law executive orders to strengthen the Buy American provisions, to strengthen the Buy American campaign in order to ensure that Americans choose locally made products every time they buy. He had a briefing to the joint houses, both Senate and Congress, where he spoke about this extensively during April 2021, proving yet again that America views this as an important element within their broader reindustrialization program, but also in the context of what we're talking about today, to ensure that those businesses that operate within the US, that make products, that render services, get the support they require so that they stay operational and so that jobs can be created. And that is the importance of entrepreneurship. If you look at the numbers before COVID-19 struck, unemployment in the US was continuously dropping. Those are the numbers between 2017 and 2019 before we went into this pandemic era. And a country with a population of 329 million, but only 5.9 million of their people were unemployed at the time, with unemployment being as low as 3.6%. Look at China, another industrial hub of the world, where a lot of people are employed in small, medium, and micro enterprises, which is what we're talking about today. But what they've done is they've positioned themselves as a factory for the world. If there is any product being consumed in the world, they will make it. The small businesses or the small, medium, micro enterprises in China will make those products and they will sell it to whoever consumes it. And that way they're able to create jobs for their masses. This is a country with a population of 1.4 billion people, but they're able to keep their unemployment numbers as low as 3.6%. And you can see the graph keeps going down in terms of the unemployment numbers in China. If you look at the numbers in South Africa, at the end of 2020, we had unemployment standing at a staggering 32.5%. And that's looking at about 7.2 million of our people who are unemployed. But if you take into consideration those who are discouraged and have stopped looking for employment opportunities, it's another 3.9 million people. And based on that expanded definition of unemployment, we're actually sitting on 42.6%. So compare that with the 3.6 that I showed you for China and the 3.6 that I showed you for the US. With most of our people that are bearing the brunt of this unemployment falling within the youth category. So a lot of the young people in this country are unemployed, and I'm glad that speakers before me touched on this, on the importance of making sure that SMMEs continue to do well, they continue to be set up, they continue to do well so that they can absorb the bulk of our people that are coming on. But I'm glad that some of the programs that Matlati spoke about before I spoke are aimed at ensuring that we create employment opportunities for the youth. This is a country with a population of 59 million, but the unemployment rate is just quite high. If you consider what has been written in the past by those who are looking at this small business space and the importance of SMMEs, and you look at what Business Tech published in January 2017, you will see that South Africa is not doing well, is lagging behind in terms of the contribution made by SMMEs to economic growth, to participation within those areas of the economy that will help grow the GDP and create job opportunities. In that, in developed economies, small businesses represent more than 90% of enterprises in all economies. But if you compare that with South Africa, we are still lagging behind, and we are still battling to even get past that 45% target that we had set a few years ago, which was meant to get to 90% by 2030. So we need South Africa to improve in terms of ensuring that SMMEs do well, they contribute to the growth of the economy, especially the creation of much needed jobs on the ground. So programs that need to come out, both financial and non-financial, need to ensure that they support SMMEs such that they can stay operational. So what are some of those challenges that have been identified in both those studies that I referred to? It's issues like attracting customers, maintaining profitability, increasing revenue, uncertainty over economic conditions, and securing financing for expansion. So in summary, SMMEs need access to information and they need access to finance. But the most important element that we have identified as Policy African, based on what our mandate is to help drive the access to market area of concern for SMMEs. So all our activities are aimed at making sure that as we get South Africans to choose locally made products, and by South Africans, I mean all sectors of society. So whether it's the public sector, the private sector, or even those who buy for their individual homes, that they choose to buy from those SMMEs and from those companies that do business within the borders of South Africa, such that they can stay operational, retain the jobs they have, and create much needed jobs. So all the programs that I'm going to unpack for you today are geared towards not just driving the buy local mandate, but doing that in order to ensure that we retain whatever market share we have and we grow whatever market share we have in all the respective industries in which our entrepreneurs find themselves in, such that those businesses can stay operational and retain the jobs they have. But as demand for their product grows, because we will choose to buy from them, that they then are in a position to can produce more and as a result employ more people and create much needed new jobs. And that is the role of Policy African within the context of its mandate. So our mandate, like I said, is to ensure that we drive procurement in favor of locally made products in the public sector and the private sector, as well as in ordinary households. And those are the four focus areas. We look at what is bought in the public sector, we look at what is bought by the private sector, we look at the consumption that is made by ordinary households, and we try to educate consumers on the impact and the economic importance of them choosing to buy locally made products. But lastly, whilst you educate consumers across all sectors of society, you need to make sure that they can find those locally made products. And so the fourth focus area for Policy African is to promote accessibility of locally made products and services, make it easy for those who want to heed our call, who want to respond to the call for them to buy local, to find those products. And so in order for you to benefit from the wide range of benefits that I'm going to unpack shortly, you need to be a member of Policy African and utilize the logo on your products, on your collateral, on your letterheads, on your websites, and everything else that you put out there to promote your business, in order to make sure that consumers know that you are one of those entities that they are being asked to support in order to drive economic growth and job creation. Because consumers then will find it easy to identify products that are made in South Africa, because by law, every single product has to indicate its country of origin and indicate where it comes from. And so consumers are asked to look out for the proud South African logo, or to look out for the ways that say made in South Africa, produced in South Africa, produced of South Africa, because that way they know that the product is locally made. In order for you to be eligible to become part of this proud South African campaign and to benefit from not just the right to use the logo, but from the benefit from the access to market programs that we have put in place, you need to conform to these four key criteria. The first one being local content, in that your product must be locally made, and the service that you render must be rendered utilizing products and equipment that is locally sourced. In terms of raw materials that you require for making the product, if you are a producer or a manufacturer, we want you as best as possible to source the products within the borders of South Africa. If it happens that the raw materials required are not available in South Africa and you have to import them, they must be transformed into the final product within the borders of South Africa. So bring in raw materials, not finished goods, and transform them and manufacture them into the final product within the borders of South Africa. And that's how you then tick the local content box. Then that's what gives us the assurance that we can go to consumers and say, we can buy from this company because the product is locally made and the value chain benefits the economy of South Africa and the jobs created in the process of making that product. Secondly, we want to have the confidence that the products that affiliate with us can meet the needs for which they are sourced. And so the quality must be right. The product must be made according to the specifications set out in that specific industry for those specific products. And so for every product and every industry, there are quality standards that must be met, there are health and safety issues that must be complied with, and that is what we advocate for. And companies that affiliate with us are vetted for that criteria as well. The last two are also quite important, those softer issues, but they're very important in that companies that affiliate with us have to ensure that in the course of doing business, they help us preserve the environment and they implement green strategies and they recycle where possible, reuse material and recycle where possible, dispose of waste responsibly, and ensure that they implement sound environmental practices. Lastly, companies that affiliate with us have to ensure that they treat their workers fairly in compliance with the labor legislation of the country. There is perception out there that the membership of Proudly South African is expensive. It's not expensive. For you to benefit from the wide range of offerings and access to market opportunities that are there, especially for SMMEs, all you need to pay is 500 rands per annum if your turnover is up to 5 million rands. So it's a once-off payment per annum, 500 rands per annum, and the next tier is for those companies with turnover between 5 million and 10 million, and those companies pay 1,000 rands. The most that any company that wants to affiliate with us has to pay is 100,000 rands, and that's for companies with turnover of 100 million rands and more. And what you see on the screen is the discounts that are applicable also to those companies that want to take membership at gold, platinum, and diamond tiers. If you want to take multiple year membership and your turnover is between 30 million rands and 100 million rands, we can then offer you multiple year discounts. So the biggest benefits linked to our value proposition is the right to use the logo, like I said, and participating in our various access to market platforms, which I'm going to unpack shortly. And so in the public sector, the biggest access to market opportunity that flows to companies that affiliate with Proudly South African stems from the fact that government has designated these items that you see on the screen. All those 27 items are designated for local procurement. So if government or any sector of the public or any entity within the public sector wants to buy local, they have to, wants to buy any of these products, they have to buy them locally. And the first one being rail rolling stock, power pylons, bus bodies, canned or processed vegetables, textile, clothing, leather, and footwear industry, some pharmaceutical products, set-top boxes, furniture items, electrical and telecom cables, valve products and actuators, working vessels, electricity meters and water meters for residences, steel conveyance pipes, transformers and shunt reactors, two-way radio terminals, solar PV components, rail signaling systems, wheelie bins, solar water heaters, firefighting vehicles, steel products and components for construction. In fact, they've added cement to that list as item number 28, rail pairway track infrastructure, pumps and medium voltage motors, plastic pipes, insulated MV switchgear, bulk material handling, as well as industrial lead acid batteries. And I intentionally went through that list in detail so that if you are a manufacturer that makes any of those products, if anyone in government wants to buy any of those items, whether they're at municipality level, at provincial level, at national level, or even a state-owned company that reports to any entity of government or any sphere of government, they have to buy these items from you. If a municipality wants to buy number 18 wheelie bins for their residences, they have to buy those locally. So the access market opportunity from our side comes from the fact that we use our database of members to feed tenders to those who want to bid for government opportunities. And how do we do that? Government has designated the items. They issue tenders for any of those items. We then identify through our tender monitoring system all tenders issued for those 27 broad items that are designated for localization. We identify manufacturers in our books and we send the tenders to them. These are tenders that you might have missed. And so we help you not miss out on the opportunity to bid for those tenders. But in the process, we ensure that the tenders that have been issued comply with the regulations that say they will not issue any of those tenders for any of those designated items to importers. So they need to have provisions in the regulations that will exclude imported products from being supplied to government. So we help government correct the tenders. If the tender comes out and it does not have the provisions, we will write to the municipality and say, you've issued a tender for beans. That tender does not have a provision that excludes importers, that prohibits imported products from being supplied to government. And so we get them together with the DTIC to change and correct the tenders such that government only receives responses from bidders that are going to supply locally made products. But the access to market opportunities that we have ensured government buys local, and that as a local producer, we give you the tender if you're in our books. If you registered with us as a bean manufacturer, we will send you tenders for all the bean tenders that are issued by any municipality or any entity of government. And that's what we do in the public sector space. We'll go all over the country and educate procurement officials about these regulations and how to apply them and how to safeguard these opportunities for small, medium, and micro enterprises in government. In the private sector, we don't have regulation as a country that is similar to what you have in government, where they've designated items. You cannot do that. It's not allowed in terms of WTO regulations. And so what we rely on are localization commitments, where we go and we solicit and secure those commitments from the private sector, where we basically ask the private sector to self-designate. In the same way that government has identified items, each corporate or each industry can identify items that is going to ring fence for localization and choose to buy those items locally. We then, the access to market opportunities, that once we secure the opportunity within the private sector, we identify companies that are suitable to respond to those opportunities in our books, local manufacturers that can then be referred to those corporates for them to buy from these companies. We have established a portal where all our members will list all their details. We will list their details on the portal, and all the corporates who give us the commitments will then list as well, and the corporates can then find suppliers that they can utilize on the portal, local producers that are sitting in the Proudly SA book that will be available to supply these products to the corporates. The buyers and sellers will then transact, and what we will have is we will implement a monitoring and evaluation process, which will enable us to track the procurement spend that flows from those entities or industries that have given us commitments. And classical example is where we've gone to the banks and we've asked them to give us a commitment for them to buy all their office furniture locally. And so that is what they will ring fence as the banks, and all companies that affiliate with us, that are registered with us as local manufacturers of office furniture, will then sit on that portal. Because they're in our books, we will send their details not just to the banks, but they will sit on the portal so that any buyer of any of the banks that have made this commitment can use the portal to find the suppliers and ask them to give quotes. They will even have advertised tenders on that portal so that the tenders are not responded to by importers, but they're ring-fenced only for those who are local producers. And that's the access to market opportunity for SMMEs. So I've given you a sense of what we do in the public sector with the tenders, and now I've given you a sense of what we do with the private sector procurement opportunities. And some of the commitments that we have been able to successfully obtain from the private sector in the past includes where we've gone to the banks and we've asked them to buy locally made furniture, and that I've unpacked. We've had 2 major banks give us that commitment. We are now engaging with the industry body to get the rest of the banks to do the same, so that all the banks then sign on the dotted line and we can give effect to this commitment. We have gone to the retailers and have asked them to increase levels of local content. And every time a retailer, whether it's a furniture retailer, it's a clothing retailer, or any other retailer that is out there, whether it's for hardware or those kind of products, if they commit to increasing levels of local content, there will come a time when they will need to find those suppliers that will supply them with the products that can live on those shelves. And that's where our database becomes important. Those companies, those SMMEs that affiliate with us are the ones that we can then refer to these retailers as those that can be looked at. And we had advanced discussions with some of the FMCG retailers. We've done well in the clothing and textile retail space. We have the likes of Foschini Group, Mr. Price. Now we're engaging with Woolworths and Truworths, and we had Edcon in the past. To get all of them to commit to increasing levels of local content, the conversations happening with the likes of Clicks, with ShopRite, with now in the next couple of weeks, we are going to engage with Pick and Pay. And all those conversations are aimed at making sure that they commit to increasing levels of local content on their shelves. And the benefit of that is that SMMEs that supply those products, like I said, are the ones that can then supply into those retailers. And so the retailers will need us to confirm that indeed this product can be trusted because it comes from a base of companies that has been vetted by Proudly South African and the quality is right, and the product is indeed locally made. The other area where we support SMMEs is where we go out and we find local commitments from manufacturers who utilize a lot of raw materials. And the example we've given there is Coca-Cola Beverages South Africa. But I think another good example would be SAB, when they've committed to utilizing raw materials that are sourced locally. So whether it's the bottles, the cans, all packaging material, the sugar. I mean, the Coca-Cola has given a commitment to say at least 80% of all sugar that they utilize in the now henceforth will be sourced locally. SAB has committed to supporting farmers. I mean, Bridget spoke earlier on from the foundation, but SAB's products that are made in South Africa 100% locally made because the farmers who grow the hops, the barley, and the maize are all supported by SAB in the process of manufacturing their products. So as a raw material supplier who's in this space, as an SMME that supplies any of those raw materials, you can benefit from those programs. We have companies that affiliate with us that are now suppliers of each of those entities. And these are just two examples. There are many more examples where we're getting companies, the big corporates that work with us to commit to buying raw materials locally. And so as a supplier of those raw materials as an SMME, you can then become a preferred supplier to those because they trust that you have been vetted accordingly by Proudly South African. Lastly, we look at opportunities that sit with entities that represent a lot of buying. And the example we've given of a program that we started 3 years ago is where we have partnered with the Franchise Association of South Africa to introduce their franchisors and franchisees to Proudly South African member companies that can become suppliers across their whole value chains. And so we lobby for market access support, especially for Black-owned enterprises, because we know new entrants battle to find those opportunities, especially in these established industries where there are established relationships and people have tried and tested suppliers that they are reluctant to move away from. So the value proposition is that we bring as Proudly South African is that you can trust these suppliers because we vetted them as Proudly South African and therefore you can buy from them. So those are just some of the things that we do as Proudly South African. We've also introduced portals where, in order for us to help ensure that we safeguard and secure access to market opportunities where they exist, that we develop portals that will help drive buyers to a point where to a place where they will find locally made products. So examples is where, as a result of the need to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a need for people to buy cloth masks, hand sanitizers, detergents and disinfectants, face shields, as well as medical PPE. And so as a supplier of any of those items, if you have gone through the correct vetting processes, you then sit on the COVID-19 page on Proudly South African's website where there are portals for each of those. And what we have been doing is engaging buyers in the private sector, big businesses especially, to say, if you want to buy any of these items, buy them locally, as opposed to what we did as a country when we started responding to this pandemic back in March 2020. And we bought all of these items from China and elsewhere. Because what we did at that time is the money left the country, but we supported those economies in them sustaining their small businesses and retaining the jobs that they have. So it's about making sure that we safeguard the market share that exists and we grow it beyond what it is. There are many companies who have repurposed and pivoted their businesses and started making all of these products in order for them to keep their business alive. But what they need is someone to walk through the doors. You can have the best business in the world, but if no one buys the product, if no one takes up the service offering that you have, you will be out of business quicker than you got in. And so this is to ensure that we support those businesses that manufacture any of these products. There is capacity for more portals to be developed. And so we have started with that process. We have now developed portals for the furniture industry, and we'll go into other industries. If you're a supplier of any furniture item, whether it's lounge furniture, whether it's office furniture, it's beds and mattresses, kitchen related furniture, you can register with PrivateSouth, can sit on the portal. What we're doing is we're driving the traffic of those who buy onto the portal, so that those SMMEs who make those products, who are saying to us, they are battling to get support from the private sector or from consumers. So we are giving them an opportunity to be found by those buyers, so that those buyers can buy from them. And that's how the furniture portal looks. Every time any buyer wants to go and find a product, they go onto the site, they will get the details of the company, including where it's based. So for example, the banks have said to us they want to buy from SMMEs that are in the areas in which the banks for which they're buying operate. So if it's a bank in the Free State or in Bloemfontein specifically, they can then find an office furniture manufacturer in Bloemfontein specifically. So that's how these portals have been set up. In terms of ensuring that we get consumers to also buy local, and we support SMMEs with accessing this market that is driven by end user consumers. We have set up an online store, rsamade.co.za. On this platform, only locally made products are sold. We are looking at other platforms to try and make sure that we expand on the reach of proudly SA made products to consumers. So we're looking at how do consumers buy? Consumers buy from retailers, physical shops, but they also buy on online platforms. And that's why this online store is important for us. It's a market access opportunity for members. It's a platform that guarantees consumers with the fact that every single product that they buy on that platform will be locally made. It will be of a high quality because it's made by members of PrivateSouth and we have been vetted accordingly. And so we help SMMEs grow their market share in each of the industries from which they come from, but also retain the jobs they have and possibly create new jobs. We roll out consumer education campaigns outside of this COVID space where we ensure that we educate consumers on the importance of buying local and looking out for products that are locally made. And we do this in malls, at festivals, at universities, at sporting codes, events. We do consumer expos. We have competitions that we roll out. We work with the unions and use the shop stewards as foot soldiers on the ground, all aimed at making sure that we increase the market share of locally made products whenever purchasing decisions are made. So if consumers are faced with an option to buy an imported product versus a locally made product, this program is aimed at making sure that it educates them on the need to choose a locally made product and what the benefit is. We all know someone who's unemployed. The numbers I mentioned at the beginning, that 11 million, those 11 million people who are unemployed are people that we know. They're in our streets, they're in our homes, they're in our churches, they're our neighbors. And so it's important that we safeguard all those jobs that exist, but we create much needed new jobs. And so we choose industries that we support at different times, and companies that benefit from those programs, are the ones for whom we are fighting for market share. At different times, we roll out different campaigns, and the main generic campaign that we rolled out during August 2020 and December 2020 is a game time advert. We are going to continue rolling that campaign out from September this year to December. And it's a generic campaign that seeks to educate consumers on the importance of buying local. We will couple this campaign with other campaigns that we're working on that will be specific in terms of products that consumers should look out for through their day-to-day lives. There are products that they utilize at different times for their homes, for their businesses. And what we say in South Africans is you can go through your whole life and make it a lifestyle just on utilizing proudly South African made products. And so the game time advert is a consumer education campaign. And for those of you who have not seen it, I'll play the ad. It's basically aimed at making sure that we get South Africans to support locally made products. And that is the message that we take out, to support SMMEs, to support the South African economy and ensure that it retains and creates much needed jobs. Okay, let me play the campaign. Let me play the advert rather. So.
The second half is about to begin. We need to change the scoreboard. It's time for all of us to pause and rethink the game plan in order to save the future. I call on all of us to be game changers, because greatness isn't reserved only for some people. By buying local, we're choosing to create jobs and sustain the ones we have. Time and time again, South Africans have taken destiny into their own hands. creating products that the rest of the world wanted to buy. See, the world remembers about us what we sometimes forget. But it's time for change. Let's all buy local. It's game time. Zanzibar.
Local is lekker.
Your everyday decisions shape our future.
And I think the call to action is quite clear. Buy local to create jobs. Your everyday decisions shape our future. As an SMME, you know that you want people to buy from you, but equally you need to buy from other SMMEs so that they also stay operational and they can retain the jobs that they have in those businesses. And that's Proudly South African and how we support entrepreneurship and those who are making products or rendering services through this Buy Local campaign. Any of you want to take up membership of Proudly South African so that you can participate in this basket of offerings, this basket of access to market offerings, please write to us, info@proudlysa.co.za. Our membership team will assist you with membership. Call us 011-327-7778. Take up membership, benefit from these offerings, because the biggest challenge that we've had or we're starting to see is that sometimes we secure opportunities, but we don't have enough companies in our books that we can refer buyers and those who are looking to buy locally too. So there are times when we come across opportunities where we find ring-fenced opportunities from the private sector and sometimes even in the public sector through the standards that come out and where we don't have enough companies. So take up membership, info@proudlysa.co.za, so that when those opportunities, if they do come and you're in our books, we can then benefit from them. Thank you, Program Director.
Thank you so much, Eustace. Before you get off screen, I know that we're running slightly behind time, but I'll be quick, is that we pride ourselves as an organization that really has great access to market opportunities for entrepreneurs, right? We play an advocacy role. And as much as we push and we influence powers that be, whether it's in the private sector, public sector, or consumers, we can only urge and we can only negotiate, and we can't enforce it, right? Especially the private sector. And when we talk about access to market opportunities, not only do we talk about a product that that you're likely to have on a shelf at a Pick n Pay, Checkers or Spar, whatever the case may be. We talk about even outside of that. Like on Saturday, for example, we took 3 of our member companies to an expo called, I think, Local Products out in Reinsach. Those are the kind of things that we do. We take you to expos like that, where a member company won't have to pay us anything. We organize everything. We just ask you to show up. And with the marketable, ready to sell product. But just to re-emphasize that we can only do this much. We can't enforce, Eustace, for retailers or anybody else to.
Yeah, no, we can't. I think that's correct. We can't force anyone to buy local. Except in the public sector and government, if they're buying any of those products. But in the private sector, you're right, we can't force anyone. But what we can do is to nudge them and urge them. But when you nudge them and urge them to buy local, and you appeal to their sense of economic patriotism, you need to have a solid base of companies that you can refer to. When you safeguard an opportunity like we did on Saturday, you need to have companies that are ready, like we said, marketable and with a ready-to-sell product and offering that can be taken to those platforms. So we do what we can, but the companies themselves have to ensure that they make the membership work. They have to ensure that the product on an annual basis, when it's renewal times, and we again assess whether your product is still of the right quality or not, that it's still of the right quality. You can't drop the ball when it comes to regulatory and compliance issues specific to your product or your offering. And so we do what we can, and the rest is then up to the businesses that really affiliate with us to take up those opportunities and to use them for their benefit.
Yeah, just to quickly say, I see online we have one of our good friends from a project called Delicious Festival. They are online. Those are we collaborate with them a number of times under normal circumstances when we could still go to physical events, and we participate in the Delicious Festival event for the last 3 years, where we take member companies who are in the food and drink space, even music for that matter, where we secure what we call a proudly South African village, and we take those companies to that platform where they could, over a period of 2 days, can sell their product to over 20,000 festival goers. You can imagine the kind of transactions that go on there. But that's just one sector that we deal with. We also do furniture, where we secure space at Decorex, for example, many other opportunities. But like you said, for more of this and to find out more about how to join the movement, you have shared the information, but I also see that a colleague of ours has typed out our email address on the chat box. Thank you so much, Eustace. Much appreciated as usual.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. All right, moving right along, as we getting closer to the end of our program today, we have 2 more speakers online, and the next speaker is a lady, Kayagazi Gepse, founder and CEO of Kaya's Kitchen. Kayagazi, we've heard about you quite a number of times. In fact, the last time we heard about you was at our Summit and Expo in March, which is our, an event, our flagship event where we showcase about 200 or so proudly South African manufactured products, where our keynote speaker this year was the president, the first citizen. It was a family meeting of a different kind. Nobody had done anything wrong. He was just reminding South Africans about the importance of buying local. I can't remember, I even think at the sauna, he also mentioned you about the inroads you're making in your industry, cooking up a storm and supplying some of the retailers your ready-made food. Just to say, we have something in common, by the way. You entered the MasterChef South Africa, am I correct? I tried to enter the Come Dine With Me. They kicked me out because their business model is based on the fact that you can't know how to cook. You must just try. Yeah, and my background in my previous life, I could cook back then, and they threw me out. At least you made it. And so we look forward to hearing from you now. Please come on. The platform is yours. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. I'm happy for that. And thank you to everybody at Proudly SA for inviting me to be part of this panel today. I'm just going to share my screen with you guys.
So Kaya's Kitchen essentially started from my passion for food. Having gone through the whole MasterChef process, I realized that food was really my passion. It was the thing that I wanted to do. And then obviously having grown up in the village, where I grew up around food, where my grandparents had fields. Because what I found was that a lot of us, especially us South Africans who grew up in the villages, we've kind of forgotten the way of life that we were raised. It feels as if like organic is something new. So Kaya's Kitchen was born out of a passion where I wanted to go back to my roots as Kaya. What I then wanted to do was to find a way of connecting my roots with a food business. So then when I moved back to the Eastern Cape, after having lived in Joburg for 10 years, I got here and I really loved the passion that Eastern Cape people have for their food. Samp, tripe, you find it in all the stores where you go, they sell it, but there wasn't any convenience packed food for that. So I thought, what if I could come up with a brand that could actually celebrate African food and not just South African and not just Eastern Cape. Now, once we then needed to think, where am I going to find the money to do what needs to be done? Because I didn't have the capital outlay. Thankfully, we then came across the CEDA STP grant, where we then sent in our application, and we found this warehouse because as part of the MDDA revitalization, we were trying to be in the hub of PE, where we weren't too far from everybody, but also at the same time, I wanted to find something that could have a vibe. because of not just wanting Kaya's Kitchen to just be about the ready-to-eat meals. So when it came time to selecting my team, that would be obviously the core team that would be helping me to put together the meals. For me, it was important to find, firstly, young people, and it was also important for me to find young people who buy into my vision as Kaya and what I stand for and the integrity of my food. I find that the people that I've found all carry the same value in terms of our outlook on food, and also our outlook in terms of quality of the product that we prepare. Where we are at the moment is obviously with the COVID-19 interruptions. We had hoped to have been in stores, in retail stores by April. So we are only now slowly building and picking up production. Hopefully by the time we hit December, in terms of our future outlook, is that we will be able to be supplying more retail stores. For me, that is the future outlook for Kaya's Kitchen, where it becomes a norm for somebody to walk into a retail store and pick up traditional African food for them to go and enjoy at home.
So essentially that's our story of how Kaya's Kitchen began. It has been a very long journey in terms of where we started and where we are at the moment. And as Happy had stated, I guess our business earlier this year got catapulted into the spotlight when the president shared our story on the Proudly SA platform, the Proudly SA Summit, where he was talking about partnerships between small businesses, government, as well as established business. In our instance, the relationship that we created with SPAR South Africa. So in essence, this is our brand, Kaya's Kitchen, which seeks to celebrate South African food. And this is just part of the range offering that we've got. Now, the hardest part for our business was the fact that we had spent almost 2 years in product development as well as renovations in our kitchen, gearing up to launch our products in retail. And our launch was meant to be on the 27th of March of 2020. Invitations had been sent. We were busy with our RSVP lists and finalizing all of the details which related to our launch. And then, as we all know, on the 23rd of March of 2020, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced the first hard lockdown in South Africa. And even a week prior to that, we had kind of anticipated that we were going to be going into a hard lockdown when the schools had been closed. And as a business at this point, we only had 3 months worth of cash flow. So the cash flow that we had was only going to be able to carry us for an additional 3 months in terms of taking care of our overheads, paying salaries, paying rent, and taking care of the essential things. So the launch was critical because obviously then launching the business would have meant that there was revenue that was going to be coming in. And now with the lockdown and not being able to trade because we were not classified as an essential service, we then needed to kind of sit back and strategize and see how we were going to live through this particular pandemic. So how did we survive COVID-19 as a business? I think for us, a key important factor was the role that big business played. And as part of his speech at the Proudly South African Summit, the president alluded to the importance of big business playing a role in obviously assisting in SMME development. We've got a whole lot of great policies as a country that talk to supplier development and enterprise development. And in our instance, I guess, with the partnership that we created with the SPAR Group, is that I'm thankful that they not only opened the door for us, but essentially they held it open and they held our hand and they walked with us through a difficult time of COVID, where they said, we are betting on this particular company and we want to see it succeed. And we are going to do everything in our power to make sure that it succeeds and it lives through the lockdown. We are now at a point where we are gearing up to launch our products in over 100 stores in the Eastern Cape. And over and above that, the SPAR Group has also then said, we want to see your product, your business grow. And we've signed a service level agreement where we are going to be not only manufacturing our own products for their retail stores, but also we are going to be manufacturing some of their own in-house brands for their retail stores in the Eastern Cape, which is quite a great boost for our business. And also secondary to that, how we survived was through government interventions that were there to assist SMMEs through the lockdown period. And for us, mainly, it was TERS through the UIF, because we had already done all of the compliance. So our staff was registered for UIF, our staff was registered for payee at the time when lockdown hit. And when we put in our applications, we then qualified. So that assisted us in making sure that we were able to retain our employees during the lockdown period. And also, thirdly, what helped us to survive as a business, I think one of the speakers mentioned this, it was adaptability, because our business is centered around retail. We are a manufacturing kitchen that's set up to manufacture products for retail. But in the first 3 months of the lockdown, we couldn't trade. And when we could eventually trade towards the end of June of 2020, we didn't have all of our compliance in place in order for us to start supplying retail. And therefore, that meant that instead of us sitting and saying we will wait for the compliance part of things to be finalized, we then looked at strategies to say, what else can we do as a business while we are waiting for the compliance process that was underhand? And therefore, we started doing home deliveries of our products to customers. We started branching out into catering, where we created bespoke catering boxes that we could do for corporates. And so by coming up with strategies of trying to keep afloat, we were then able to wait out the period while we were still undergoing compliance. Now, as a small business owner, for me, it is important to understand the playing field within which I operate. And some of these, and I'm by no means a statistician, and some of these points that are on this graph were shared by Eustace. So in terms of the global outlook, if you look at the percentage of businesses that are made up by SMMEs globally, you're looking at a trend of 90%. And if you look at the top 3 African countries, one of which South Africa is part of those, and Ghana being 8th on the list based on their GDP, we are sitting right there on top with everyone at 98%. But when you look at the employment rate of South Africa within the SME industry, as opposed to the global outlook or the global standard that sits at 60%, and the rest of our counterparts in Africa, we sit way below average at just under 50%. We're sitting at 47% of that stat, and those stats vary depending on who you speak to within the business sector. And therefore, it means that as a country, we need to look at where are we going wrong as SMMEs, why are we not creating employment. Why? Because we've got the 98% of the businesses. So why is that not translating to employment within our own country? Now, I'm going to speak with regards to my experiences within my industry as a business owner, some of the challenges that we've faced, and some of the and how we've managed to overcome some of those challenges, and some of the solutions that I, as an entrepreneur, think could potentially drive that number higher, so that we are able to meet the NDP's 90% goal by 2030, which is in 9 years' time. So for me as a business owner, the biggest challenges that I've faced is firstly scalability, second policy versus implementation, both in government and in the private sector when it comes to supporting SMMEs, and also compliance, particularly within this particular fields that we operate in as a business. There are a lot of compliance issues that can be a hindrance to SMMEs, and I'll touch on those as I go on in the presentation. And also fourthly, it's the issue of trust. And I think Eustace also spoke on this in his presentation with regards to the trust that is built and created with locally produced products. Now, on the issue of when we look at scaling up, so as a business, the business idea started in 2018, where we wanted to have a brand within retail, and we knew what this product was going to look like. But at that point in time, we then had to go through the development phase of developing the product, making sure that it was compliant, and therefore being ready to scale up. But when it came to scaling up and able to not just produce our products now for markets in the Eastern Cape, where we had been traveling to different markets and selling our product and getting our products listed by small farm stalls where we were able to sell our product. Financing was the biggest issue for us, because we couldn't approach banks because we didn't have collateral as a business in order for us to be able to get financing from the bank. And there were restrictions within government itself in terms of financing our business venture, because not only did we have to come on board and have an offtake partner for our products before we could get funding in order to showcase that this was a viable product, but also we couldn't access the market because we didn't have a product and therefore we didn't have funding. So it was a case of which comes first, the chicken or the egg. So government is going to fund me if I've got an offtake partner, but an offtake partner wants surety that if they do give me an offtake agreement, that I am going to be able to finance this particular business venture. And also information for us as SMMEs is lacking. And I think sometimes it's also the lack of willpower on our end as SMMEs to go out there and find the information, because sometimes these things are not readily available in terms of what government assistance is there to be able to assist you as an SMME, in terms of how you can tap into larger business networks and other SMME networks that can be able to assist you. And also in terms of scalability, I think the focus with regards to everybody in the country is always on the creation of small businesses, creating new entrants into the market. But majority of us as small businesses, we make up 66% of the 98% of SMMEs. We are micro enterprises that can only employ a maximum of 10 people within our businesses. And 26% of that is made up of what is classified as small businesses. And those businesses only employ 11% of the 44% of employment that we saw in our earlier graph, because they can only employ between 10 to 50 employees on average. and only a small number of SMMEs are able to grow to become medium enterprises, which make up 6.5% of the 98% of overall enterprises. But they are able to create larger volumes of employment at averages of 250 maximum employees in those particular enterprises. So perhaps to a point, we need to be shifting our focus and saying, instead of focusing on the creation of smaller businesses or micro enterprises entering into the playing field, there is room to look at policies and strategies in terms of how do we grow the existing 66% of micro enterprises to becoming small businesses, to becoming medium-sized enterprises, so that they are able, as they grow, they are able to grow their job creation footprint. Because if you are creating micro enterprises and increasing the 66% number, those businesses are only able to employ a maximum of 10 people in a particular business. So perhaps it's to say, let us relook at our policies and see how we focus on growing the existing businesses that we've got currently. And also, what I found as a challenge, as I alluded to this, was policy and application, the gaps between policy objectives and application, both within the private sector and within government. If you look at the stats, it shows us that in 2018-2019 financial year, government procurement spend, only 23.7% of government procurement spend went to SMMEs. Now, government launched a preferential procurement policy that stipulated that 30% of government spending should be spent on SMMEs. So clearly there's a gap in terms of how that policy is being implemented, and how do we look at strategies to ensure that SMMEs are able to tap into government spending, where they are perhaps compliance issues. How do we help SMMEs to grow and to become compliant so that they can tap into government procurement spending? And then also in terms of enterprise development within, I believe Bridget touched on this, that with the companies that find them, SMMEs like myself, that find themselves within the enterprise development of larger corporations, in more cases than not, we end up falling between the cracks, where the first year is great. This particular enterprise development entity is walking the journey along with you, but there is no real plan in terms of how to make these SMMEs become self-sustainable. And also within our particular industry, in retail manufacturing, how do you make sure that this person becomes sustainable and that their product actually makes it on the shelves of retail? Globally, there is a focus on focusing on smaller producers to fill the shelves within retail spaces. And therefore, I guess within our own retail space in South Africa, we need to look at how do we increase the footprint for SMMEs to enter into the market. And then the fourth challenge, and I think Eustace touched on this as well, it's trust for small business brands, because there is a huge lack of trust, not just from big business in procuring products from small enterprises, but also generally from consumers. Small businesses have to fight harder in order to be able to gain trust from the consumers for their products. I guess that also relies on us as small businesses to say, how do we become more competent? How do we consistently produce a product that a consumer wants to buy and that a retailer wants to keep listed on their shelves? And how do we become more reliable and how do we run our businesses more professionally and reliably. And I guess for me, it's also important that as SMMEs ourselves, we need to walk the talk, because enterprise development and incubation is not just for big business. It's not just for government. For instance, I, as Kaya, need to look at my own business and say, how do I make a difference as Kaya? How do I take my own procurement budget and make sure that I buy from other smaller businesses? So for instance, one of the decisions that we took as a business was that we were going to assist small farmers from the village. We've got Ulu Demachiza, who is in Kubiso, which is a village just outside of Alice. And through the partnership that we created with him, he now supplies us with our fresh produce, cabbage, spinach, beetroot, and other things. But also through the relationship we've established with him, he's now been able to grow his own business, where he is able to supply 3 spas within his locality with his fresh produce. So if we look within ourselves as well as SMMEs and say, of the total turnover that we as small businesses are able to make, how much of that turnover are we spending and investing in the growth of other smaller businesses, so that as we grow other small businesses? And that was essentially Kaya and what we do, and my take on what I think we can do as SMMEs to make a difference.
Thank you so much. Kaya, please don't disappear off of the screen. There we go. Thank you so much. You are such a breath of fresh air, honestly. You know, you are that girl who was told that you're not deserving of some of the things that you were aspiring to do, and you'd never make it, and you then decided, I am coming for everything, right? Am I correct? You're really just such a breath of fresh air, and big ups to your thought process. You know, I mean, just to give you a quick example, thank you for your innovation and being so forward thinking. You took the invitation today, you put it on your own Instagram page to tell your followers what you're doing. You know, it's about that. It's about investing in your own business. You could have just showed up, did a presentation and walked away, but you never know who's going to log on from your platform and hear your story and open another door. This is exactly what entrepreneurship is about. You are everything. You're marketing your business. You're a founder of the business. You are a salesperson. You know, that's a sales pitch that you just did now in a very informative and very lighthearted and in a way that we can all resonate to it. You are the lady that, you know, takes care of the phone calls in your business. You employ people, you take care of people, you take care of the value chain. You are just really that girl, and it's really what entrepreneurship. It's that and more, and you know that. But I just want also to say to you that, you know, we've got something in common. So you were going to launch your business on the 27th of March last year, and then life happened. We were also on the invitation that had gone out. The plans were done for our summit last year, and we were told it's not going to happen. So we feel you. We feel you. We're in the same boat. But also just to say that, well done. I really think, and I speak for Proudly SA, but also would imagine that for people who are sitting in the webinar as well, there is a comment, by the way, where somebody is saying, really, you're such an inspiration. But well done for identifying a gap and grabbing it and supplying to retail stores traditional food like umleqwa, umngqushu, umhodu, I would imagine, umoroho. You know, that is so. Isn't that refreshing? I mean, you know, yeah.
It is, because I think as consumers who've migrated to the suburbs to provide a better life for ourselves and for our children and our families, you find that when you crave that authentic, real home food, you have to travel and drive to the township, to go and find that particular dish that you are looking for. So how incredible is it that I can walk into a local retail store and pick up that product and go home and heat it up in the microwave and sit down and enjoy it?
You know, just big ups to that. Big ups to that. But however, I'm going to throw you under the bus, but I'll make sure it's a comfortable bus, like a luxury bus. So you don't come out, so you come out on the other side. Okay, you've done everything well. You're doing everything well. There's just one thing you haven't done. Just one thing. And that is joining the Buy Local movement. So alongside your Kaya brand behind you, there should be a proudly South African logo where you communicate and you sell your brand as a proudly South African brand. In fact, the president asked you to do it. So you're gonna have to do it.
I'm on it. By the end of this week, I will be proudly South African.
Fantastic. Thank you so, so much, Kaya. We really appreciate you. We appreciate the time, and we appreciate, you know, the fact that you took this seriously and you are here and to share so much and to be so inspirational. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Kaya.
you for having me.
All right. Okay, thank you, everybody. I mean, there isn't anything else to say about Kaya. She's really just that girl. Sorry, I've got technical glitches there. I'm back. Our last speaker, please welcome onto the platform. Our last speaker, but certainly not least, who is going to share with us, a bit of insight on what it means to be proudly South African. Semi Maule is founder of Kicks Sportswear. Is that correct, Semi?
Sportswear.
Yeah, Sportswear. Fantastic. Welcome, welcome. And thank you for your patience. We're running slightly over, but thank you for hanging in there as we have this important discussion. Please go for it. The platform is yours.
Thank you so much for having me. I think it was critical for me to hang in because I think this is one of the key platforms that's about to change lives. And I want to thank you as an organization for inviting me, the CEO of Proudly SA, as well as my colleagues on the platform. When I was invited, I was not sure as to which angle that my conversation will go. But I suppose if I share my video and base it on the foundation of the video, you will understand where I'm starting and where I'm going.
Sorry, you're not sharing your screen. We can't see the video.
It actually did not share. It actually did not share. Okay.
Okay, you've started share. There we go. Perfect. You can see now.
So I suppose Suppose at the end you hear Jessica saying, we are the one that made it possible. That is so true. So 2019, 18, I came up with the concept of introducing a sports brand, 100% sports brand from Africa to the world, which will be a platform for job creation as well as being a platform where entrepreneurship can be grown. At Kicks, we make sports apparel, your sneakers, your socks, your backpacks, as well as flip-flops as our launch key products. We launched the products as well as the company officially last year in October at Mall of Africa. And I suppose what we wanted to do then, we wanted to make sure that we remain relevant as to what was happening at the time. We've just been on our lockdown, and in my mind as an entrepreneur was, how do I help my country? How do I help myself? How do I help the people that works for the company? And it was so critical for me to be very proactive in terms of the solutions that I will provide. We manufacture our sneakers, your flip-flops, everything in locally. And we find it so important for us to be 100% South African, because our concept is very clear. We want it to be the first sports brand from Africa to the world. And when we mean from Africa to the world, meaning that we have to control our value chain, being able to be a part, being able to be a key player in the community and be able to affect our communities. But the most important thing was I was challenged by the question that was posed earlier on as to what is the solution of getting out of the current situation as South Africa. And the biggest thing for me was to create a platform where we have positioned ourselves as a company, where we have said we're going to create a 1,000 job creation, which we started last year, October, when we launched our company. We've said we have to look at things differently. COVID has taught us to be smarter, to be wiser. But then how do we move forward as people, as a company, when we're using the same solutions that have been exhausted for many, many years? COVID requires us to act differently, as also to change how we do things. I then invited 10 young people as part of my entrepreneurship, where I've said, I would love to create jobs, but more importantly, how do we then create a platform where these young people are able to create their own jobs? These young people today, they are almost halfway to their entrepreneurship, where we've said, come in for the next 12 months, you create a company, we support you, we help you, and we position your company and we send you out. They will only be in our department for 12 months. They will learn as much as possible, all the skills that they would need to be able to. That would link up to our 1,000 job creation, where we're saying, once you leave, the minimum jobs that you have to create is 4. From that 4, it becomes another 4. And for me, it's so critical that part of the trading out of COVID or current situation is that we put sustainable solutions. And part of that, we've said we want to control our value chain. And controlling that value chain, meaning that we source everything locally. We make sure that every link of the business, whether we buy from a supplier, they care about the environment, they care about their employees, and they're linked to what we believe in providing a proudly SA solution that benefits the country as well as grow employmentship. And part of what we've said, if we're going to be a change that we need to be in the next coming 2 years, because we're not sure how long COVID-19 is going to be lasting in our space, we're going to need to be clear on what we want to do. And what we found when we started Kick Sportswear was that the lack of collaboration and partnership is lacking in our entrepreneurship. And then we've indicated very clearly that we have to be able to collaborate and be able to exchange services. We have to be deliberate in terms of how we do business and link up with other entrepreneurs as well as individuals that are locally based. We said we wanted to be consistent in order to grow our business and be stubborn and have a level of consistency that is so stubborn that we are not moved from our growth and from our purpose. And then we also said we want to be very clear, being able to provide clarity and being clear on our purpose and be driven by the core of our foundation, as well as being able to create jobs. The clarity that we wanted to affect has always been the clarity to do everything and to also to avoid the self-doubt as to understanding whether is there a market in South Africa or not. In South Africa right now, you have a population of 56 to 58 million people that are currently South African population. And out of that population, we only need 10% enabled to create our 10,000 jobs by 2023 and be able to affect other businesses as well as entrepreneurship. And I honestly believe that hope it is available for entrepreneurship who are willing to grow their business as well as being able to play in the space. Most of the entrepreneurs have shut their business, and it's also important to take note that according to FinFind, it says 42% of small businesses in South Africa have been destroyed by the lockdown and COVID-19, which this has also opened a huge gap for new opportunities as well as being able to create new innovation solutions that will take employment as well as entrepreneurship to another level. So at Kicks, what we have said, we have learned from our lessons from some of our business that we have created. I'm also a founder and the managing director of Skyroll Drinks, which supplies Pick n Pay, Checkers, Spa, as well as Tohosan. But the worst thing that has happened when COVID-19 hit us was that we couldn't supply any of our regular companies that we normally supply. So it meant that we lost almost 40% of our business. The hospitality sector was not operational. So it meant that we had to change how we do business as well. So that 40% that we lost as a business, we've said going forward, we want to make sure that that 40% is controlled within the companies. We involve young people. We involve the people that literally don't look attractive to get jobs, but they must have skills. So the 40%, it becomes a value chain that we control within the company in order to be able to avoid similar situation where we found ourselves with a situation where we can't supply. When COVID-19 happened, we couldn't supply because all the retailers that we supply, they were focusing solely on sanitizer as well as the coffees, as well as the creamers. But going forward as a company, we've set ourselves aside as a learning curve that we have learned from COVID-19. How do we move forward as a company without learning key lessons and also being a platform where we can affect other entrepreneurs? So far, since we have started our enterprise development, which is linked to my entrepreneurship, we have now shown that by 2023, we should be able to affect at least a further 1,000 jobs that will be linked to our platform of creating jobs. I'm very passionate about creating jobs as well as creating jobs that are locally made, being able to link up to that ecosystem of the entrepreneurship, as well as making sure that we are the change that we need to be. So 2021, what we have said, we want to create our own store, but most importantly, we want to make sure that those stores are driven by the key elements of making sure that we are a foundation of job creation, as well as being a platform where entrepreneurship can be grown. So far, we have planned to open 10 stores by the year 2022, which will be ending in our current financial year, where we'll see at least 30 jobs being created out of Cake Sportswear, which is the company that is currently trading as a baby. So it's so important that to look at solutions and say to ourselves, how do we become a solution instead of being a problem where we look for funding and so on and so on. Funding, it is important, but it's so important that we become proactive as a company and we create platforms that we want to change. Kick Sportswear, it is available currently online, as well as we'll be opening our 10 stores beginning of next month up until the next financial year end. And we are so excited that we have been invited to this platform to share our company as well as where we're going as a company. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Semi. Thank you. There's really just so much that you know, that we've learned from your presentation as well, and from everybody's presentation as well. And as we close our webinar today, I think what most of us take from your presentation is that there are opportunities out there. Yes, it is hard. I think we can't underplay that. It's hard for many reasons. You know, at times there's lack of access to market opportunities, which is critical, because you can have a great product like you have, Semi, but if no one buys from you, which is what Eustace Mashimbe, CEO of Proudly South African, alluded to as well earlier on. If nobody buys from you, then it defeats the purpose. You know, you will close your doors. But there's ways and means, you know, to do business. It's about thinking outside the box. It's about really just constantly coming up with innovative ways, and not looking at your business the traditional way of doing things, but really just being a hustler who does not sleep. You know, I'm of the view that if you're an entrepreneur and you have an 8-hour sleep, then there's something wrong with that formula. Entrepreneurs are constantly, or should be constantly, looking out for, thinking of, you know, in the middle of the night, you're thinking, when I go out looking for that business tomorrow, at the meeting that I have tomorrow, how am I going to clinch the deal and come back with it? You really hardly ever sleep with one eye open, and you know, half your mind is on overdrive, thinking about the next step to ensure that your business makes it. You agree, Semi?
I do agree. I think also for me is the understanding of knowing your right to war. And most entrepreneurs, they don't understand their right to war as to why they started a business, what type of business are you starting, and where would be the end goal for your business. And when you understand your right to war, it's so critical that you understand every part of your business. When COVID-19 hit us, it was almost like go back to your strategy and look at your right to war. What does it talk to when you have a force of majestic that you cannot control, and be able to balance that fact, and that you cannot change it, but you're moving forward as a business. And I also believe that, you know, being a company, as an SME company, is that, you know, we have no time in sitting around where we're saying to ourselves, we're waiting for somebody to rescue us as a company, or waiting for the government to rescue us. Yes, government has to be a plus in what we're doing, but we have to keep moving, because there are jobs that need to be secured, there are suppliers that need to be paid, and the longer we took in finding solutions, the lesser we would have a chance of surviving as entrepreneurs. Most of the entrepreneurs, they get shocked when their businesses are going south. They don't have what you call it, the right to war. And right to war talks to almost like a soldier going to Afghanistan to try and fight the war. It's like when you go to war, you cannot go to a war without your weapon. You have to be ready at all times. COVID-19 for us, it has presented a situation or an opportunity for us to say, looking at the market right now, there is no 100% black sports brand that is from Africa to the world. How do we capitalize on that opportunities, and how do we accelerate it in making sure that we create jobs that are sustainable, as well as being a platform where entrepreneurship can be created?
So in a nutshell, as we close, Semi, you're saying that you can't go to a war where they're using guns and you come with a knife. You're not a weapon. That's basically what it means. Thank you so much, Semi. Keep up the good work. Keep on keeping on. We wish you all the best. And we are hoping that your association with Proudly South African is really doing your business very well. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And now we've come to the end of our webinar. You know, entrepreneurship means it needs the whole day, honestly, to discuss it like, you know, properly. There's just so many elements of entrepreneurship that can be covered. You know, everybody had such great contribution that they made to this discussion. But, you know, you can't, you know, expect to deliberate and talk a lot more about entrepreneurship in a space of 2 hours. We really just need a lot more. I think for Entrepreneurship Month coming up, we should have a bigger a seminar, so to speak, that talks to entrepreneurship and partner with all stakeholders that are absolutely critical for every entrepreneur or for any small business and medium-sized business to make it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this morning. And I just want to thank our speakers in this order: Ms. Bridget Evans, Director at SAB Foundation. Thanks to her in her absentia. We thank Ms. Matlatse Dolamo, Ecosystem Enabler, on Sloan, who also had to jump off the call, thanks in her absentia. And then we thank Mr. Eustace Mashimbie, who is CEO Proudly South African. Thank you so much, Eustace. He is still online. Kaya Gazikepe, founder and CEO Kaya's Kitchen Girl. In typical township South African lingo, we say Uya Lwandombo. You know, Lwandombo, you know where that comes from. You keep fighting a hell of a good fight. Thank you so much for being here today. May I ask all speakers to switch on their cameras as we say goodbye. And last but not least, Semi Mhaule, who is founder of Kick Sportswear. Thank you so much, Semi. And everybody who joined us this morning, we thank you for being here, and we are hoping that you managed to take away quite a lot from what was discussed today. Should you need any aspect of this recording or you know, information on how to join Proudly South African, you're more than welcome to email us on info@proudlysa.co.za, info@Proudly South Africa. Okay, let me start that again. info@proudlysa.co.za. That's our email address. And thank you to Team Proudly South African for putting this together. Thank you, everybody, and keep warm and have a great day further. Goodbye, everybody.